Welcome your hosts Caddy, Frink, and Erin Fitzgerald as they lead discussions about substance use disorder and the journey to recovery. You're listening to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution.
Well, good day, everyone. We are here at Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution. And my name is Caddy Frink, and I am sitting here across the table from
Erin Fitzgerald. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm okay. How about you?
Good, thank you. I'll start the morning off with a special thanks to our generous funders, including the Patrick and Amy Butler Family Foundation, Otto Bremer Trust, the Sauer Family Foundation, the Hardenberg Foundation, alongside our other many foundation corporate and individual contributors for making this podcast series possible. We wouldn't be here without you, and we appreciate you.
And thank you very much. That was beautiful. Thank you, Miss Erin.
You betcha.
Well, here we are on a lovely, rainy, kind of been rainy all kind of weekend. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're here on Tuesday after Memorial Weekend, just sort of letting that out of the bag. So we all got some stuff going on with this rain thing. I love it, but I'm tired of it at the same time. Mm-hmm. So here we are, and I'd like to ask Miss Erin, what is right with you today?
Oh, sometimes I remember to think about this, and sometimes I don't. So on the way in this morning on the radio, I heard a funny statistic, and it was a good statistic. I liked it. It was, what age do people actually start getting cranky in life? And I was like, I hope that I don't have to get out of the car. I want to hear this. I got to hear this. It's got to be at least, I'm 44 right now. I was like, it's got to be 44. It's got to be 44 or younger, folks. And it turns out it's 42. I was like, amen. Perfect. I have an excuse. 42 is the average age that people start getting cranky. And it kind of reminded me, though, then of like ACEs and just learning about different things in our lives. Like, it's not like I'm just going to use that as an excuse for like, why I'm cranky today. But there's, facts behind it. And it says that that's normal, typical.
Wow, I love it. I'm like, wow, what happened to me at 42? Where was I? That was many years ago. Mm-hmm. Sounds about right, though. I love that.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. It's because that's when people really kind of get set in their ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to move from there.
Right.
Wow. You just made me think about my relationship with my guy and my relationship with other people. Yeah. That's true. You get set in your ways at about that 40-ish because you're in your career generally or the second or third career in some cases, I think me. Yeah. And oh, that's so interesting. I love that, though. And you're like, yes, I'm good. Fantastic.
I knew I was going to fit into that category. I mean, I'm generally a happy person, but,
we all got a little crank here and there, yes.
Yes, anywho. What's right with you today, Caddy?
What's right with me? I'm just mulling that over. It's fabulous. Let's see. What's right with me today? Even though it was a rainy weekend, I got to get outside and dig in the dirt and plant. And buy more plants and then dig in the dirt some more and show my plants off to people. And I'm very proud of my yard and very proud of my plants and my pots and the energy that I put into it because that's one of my huge pathways to my recovery.
It is.
Yeah. And Eric, sometimes my guy, says, you don't have anything in your ears. You're not listening to anything. I'm like, no.
I don't need it.
No, this is my time to just either think about stuff, but generally I don't even think about anything. I'm just I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just focusing on what I have in front of me.
You're in the moment.
Yeah. And that is just like an amazing thing is when you are truly I'm in the zone, and I would sit down periodically because my back was killing me, and then start talking to the guy or talking to the neighbor, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, gotta go, get out of here because I gotta get back in the dirt. Let me get back in the dirt.
Good for you.
So it was really nice, and then everything I planted got nice and absolutely soaked yesterday. Got caught in the hail yesterday. That was kind of interesting.
Oh.
Yeah,
yesterday was a weird day.
Yeah, very weird. So anyway, I'm really good because I really did get some dirt time.
Good. I'm glad that you did. And I'm glad to hear that you took a little break because it worries me when you worked outside too much. with our old lady hips and backs that we have and knees and all this jazz.
You're absolutely right. No, I do sit down periodically because the reality of the age does catch up with us. Yes, so we just roll with that.
Yeah.
So here we are. Thank you. That was really wonderful. I love the cranky and I love the planting. I mean, this is what we do. So I was thinking about what the show might look like. And last week we had Justin Fuller Green, our incredible young man from Minnesota Recovery Connection, who has just joined us and just blossomed amazingly. And he was talking about the story of when he went down to New Orleans for an event and how he had to ration his medicated assisted treatment and recovery. And I thought, what a great way for our community to understand what these medications are designed for, how they work, why we have them. And there's so many different ways that people can recover. But what is it that we can help educate the greater community on when somebody says they're on methadone, they're on Suboxone, they're on some of the other medications for smoking or on medications for alcohol use? And I thought we're going to get a little technical here, and I'm going to need some help with Caddy's dyslexia and the reading of some of the medications that Erin is amazing on. So tell me what your thoughts. I mean, you'd said you thought about this about this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Because when Justin was on, that was something that I really wanted to talk about a little more, and we ended up just talking about all sorts of other great things. So I thought that it was important because these are medications that folks really can withdraw from. And so he had to be really mindful once he recognized what was going to happen when he was on vacation. And so he had to ration. And he did that in a way that he still wasn't feeling well enough to go and participate. And so it was an unpleasant experience, but it wasn't completely full blown like it could have been, which is like agonizing pain and just incredibly uncomfortable, especially if you're going on a road trip, or flying somewhere, or whatever the case may be. That would just be awful. And so it's really important that we understand that between folks and their doctors, we're on these medications. We're going to maybe discuss a little bit more about a couple of the medications so we just understand how they work and why they're beneficial to people. And there's science behind all this, right? Like understanding that our brains have changed. And so we have to give it time to come back. And these medications are really helpful.
Yeah. Well, and I think probably a lot of the listening audience would have heard about, I think it's like a year or 2 years ago when insulin was not being either manufactured or something happened with the pipeline. Yeah. And where people were having to ration their insulin and they weren't feeling great and they were scared because this is a medication that helps them stay alive. Well, let's talk real. When people are coming off of, we'll say specifically right now, and then we'll talk more about it, but specifically off of opiates, and they're on their specific medication to help them withdraw from it, and I'm sorry, not withdraw, but to stay medicated so that they can stay in a state of health. Stabilize, thank you. That if you don't have that, you don't feel good. So let's make sure that we don't just sort of look at this from the aspect of just substance use disorder. I think I've heard the same thing about those who struggle with asthma. And if they don't have their inhaler with them, or their inhaler runs out, or there's a pipeline issue, people have to really, manage their activities and things like that. So we have to remember that these medications that are coming from a trusted source, from the medical community, that they're given to people to help them in their recovery process.
Yeah, and there's kind of an emergent solution that's needed in these cases, right? Just like you said with your insulin, it's an emergent solution that we need. Same with your medicated assisted recovery. Otherwise, folks will go back to their illicit drugs.
Yeah, and that what we do know is that if someone does not have their medication, they have that craving because the withdrawal is taking over and it consumes them, and they know in the other part of their brain that has been on these substances that if I just go out and get a little bit of this or this, guess what? Those withdrawal symptoms will go away. And so we need to recognize the fact that if somebody's on a medication and it's not available, we are at risk of somebody reusing the substance that could possibly kill them.
Exactly.
Where when in fact, if we have the medications available for people, when they need them, they will be much healthier. And I think one of the things you said to me earlier, and that is, and we're going to talk about this, is that these medications are not short-term.
Correct.
These are long-term medications. So, we have in front of us some of the training materials that we use for our Recovery Coach Academy. And what we're going to do is kind of dive into some of the depths of some of this medicated assisted recovery and therapy. It's called MAT. You might have heard that. Many of us in the industry are going to know medicated assisted treatment. And so we've sort of changed the language to medicated assisted recovery. So when we come back, we are going to talk about this.
Welcome back to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution. I'm Erin, and sitting across from me is Caddy, and today we are talking about medicated-assisted therapy or treatment, which we are starting to call medicated-assisted recovery, because essentially that's exactly what it is. It is a medication that is assisting us in our recovery from substance use disorder. And so where are we going to go from here, Miss Caddy?
I think one of the things we had talked about earlier is people in our community, they hear about these things and they say, and I'm just going to leave it at, they say, well, if you're using another drug, then you're not really in recovery. And if there's something that chaps my hide, it's that. Because I hear people kind of get all up in people's grill about, well, if you're on methadone or you're Suboxone or you're on some of the other medications, all you're doing is substituting one for the other. And we're like, wait. Back up the bus.
Yeah.
Because that is really not true. Somebody has gotten some medical advice from their therapist, their doctor, their counselor. These are things that are going to help you in your process. Because if somebody has tried an abstinence-based program in any format, they've gone to treatment, and then they get out and they go back out into the community, and their cravings come back because of many different possibilities. People in their neighborhood, family members, work gets too hard, whatever the case is, they're like, I know how to feel better.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and get happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah, I don't, but boy, the temptation on enough occasions has been, So instead, what we do is we enhance the possibility of someone's success in their recovery. And we have these incredible medications that can be prescribed so people can have that supplemental support along with their therapy, maybe their meetings, maybe some good conversations with people so that they can feel supported in their recovery journey.
Right. So there's certain kinds, we've got the methadone and Suboxone. Maybe we'll talk about those first because I think people are those are more well known. And then maybe we can talk about like the craving medications too, because there's different steps that we can take, right? So like the most popular or the first one I think that folks would be familiar with would be methadone.
Correct.
Yeah, and that started
back in the 60s.
60s, yeah, so a long time ago. It's been around, and people aren't aware of that. And it started out as kind of, because opioids and heroin were stigmatized and still are kind of in the substance use world, right? Yeah. And so people didn't even want to do studies on it. But what they found was that methadone worked, and essentially what methadone is, folks, is it's like heroin, but what it does is it releases slowly. So you just take one dose. And so, if you see folks that they, in air quotes, nod out, it's because they're using that drug, that antagonist or agonist, sorry. And so it's activating those opioid receptors just like heroin would, but it releases slowly throughout the day. And so eventually you start to come back to life. And so then you are functioning for a whole 24 hours. And you don't have to look for more, which helps with that obsession, right? And so that's what people don't really understand, is that's why you're still having those symptoms that look similar to heroin, is because it's kind of the same thing. It's just slow releasing.
Right.
Yeah.
And what it's doing is it's giving people an opportunity because of the slow release and because of the, because of the way the chemicals are working in the body. They're not giving the high per se,
Right.
that instant kind of high, which is what you get when you take the illicit opiates. You take this, and it gives people an opportunity to live a life. Back in the day, they used to give folks morphine when they were coming off of heroin and coming off of any of the opiates, and that would just completely whack them out. They're just like truly zombies because we know that morphine is an extraordinarily strong, just like take you down. And then they found that when they were using methadone, they were using it for people with withdrawal from an overdose, and then all of a sudden they realized, oh, if we use this and we sort of monitor it, and I think what happens is that people see folks, like you say, sort of dozing off. All medications have to be regulated in terms of the amounts and how much, and
they all have side effects.
Absolutely.
Crazy ones.
All medications. So think about that, folks. If you've ever been on a medication, they always say side effects could be.
Blah, 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 blah.
Sometimes it's a full page and it scares the bejesus out of you.
Right.
Like I did with one of my medications. I'm like, oh my God, should I really take this? But what we want to do is we want to talk about the fact that these medications can save lives because they interrupt the mental obsession with the substance that somebody has been addicted to.
And that's super important. I think it's also important that folks understand that being on these medications for a certain amount of time is beneficial for them as well, right? Because we're retraining our brains. There's pathways that we've driven through them using our substances, and now we've got to train our brains back. So it's proven that if we're on these medications for 1 to 3 years, we will sustain long-term recovery, or more folks will. And if we're on them for 3 to 5 years, even more people will sustain long-term recovery. And that's just important to know because a lot of folks, again, with that stigma, they're like, well, when are you going to get out that stuff?
Right.
Like, well, when my doctor says it's the time to do so. Right.
And I'm feeling confident enough to go off of it because I've lived a new life.
Yeah.
I've been productive in my personal life. I've been productive in if it's my work life or my school life or whatever life that you have, you've put together a whole new plan. Then when you're feeling confident and secure and you've got all the tools in your toolkit to remain in recovery, then you talk to your doctor and say, you know what is coming off of these medications that you have prescribed to me look like? And some of them do have side effects on coming off. I've witnessed that from people. But guess what? It's done under a doctor's care. And it's like any medication. If you go off of antidepressant or you go off of something, and I'm not even going to try to, whatever that might look like.
Yeah.
You do it under the care and you do it slowly. And then if you have any setbacks, either in your mental health or your physical health, okay, let's address those and let's move forward. And we're really diving into this because of the stigma around medicated assisted recovery. So when we talk about them, there are some very specific ones for opiates, and I'm going to have Erin support me in the reading of some of these opiate medicated assisted treatments because me and Caddy's dyslexia go a little bit off the rails. So we want to just kind of give you some real terms that you might hear from folks that you are surrounding yourself with who have been in active addiction and now they're in their recovery space, and you might hear them talk about the medications they're on, and rather than go, what's that? You can just have a little bit more information. And for those who might judge these, we want to just describe a little bit about some of the medications. So, Erin, would you mind being my muse and reading some of these?
Yes, and I think it's hilarious that you are telling me to do this because I'm not a pharmacist. Anywho, I'll start with the easy ones.
There you go. Easy.
Right. So Suboxone, Suboxone. So this is a buprenorphine and naloxone mix. And so essentially this is what most people are familiar with, similar to methadone being prescribed for opioids. This will relieve the pain that most people have been taking their opioids for, and then it also has the naloxone in it. So what that means is that you are not going to be able to get high off of Suboxone. It has like a ceiling effect, so you could take as much as you wanted to, and that naloxone in there is going to block it, right? But it still is helping you. And then there's another Sublocade, which is essentially the same, but it's a 30-day injection, or it's an injection that lasts for 30 days. And this is important for folks that either have transportation issues or are unhoused, and it's just difficult for them to make it to a clinic frequently.
Or maybe have incredibly busy lives and
absolutely
work or children or this or that. These are
or you
options.
Forget to take your medications on a regular basis.
Right.
That can be real difficult for folks.
Absolutely,
Yeah. So those are the two that most folks are familiar with, right? And then we've got the buprenorphine, which suppresses and reduces cravings for opioids. Naltrexone, which would be doing the same thing for opioids and for alcohol, and some other drugs. What else we got here? I guess on this list in front of me here, the only other one on here would be naloxone or Narcan, which is, of course, the opioid reversal drug, which is just a godsend.
Brings people back from a potential overdose.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing to remember about those is that if somebody has had an overdose and they are given this, what it does is it immediately throws them into a withdrawal from the drug that they took too much of, either generally not by choice. Let's just say sometimes people either get a chemical that they are using in their addiction and it is laced with something and there's too much of the opiate, and what happens is that their system essentially goes into shutdown mode. They don't breathe, they don't move, and so then you inject or you use a pump air into the nasal cavity to bring this individual back, and that just automatically throws them into a really yucky place because their body's going, "Where's my stuff?"
Yeah, they might be real mad.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard. And then the other thing is, folks, is that sometimes it's not one dose or two dose. It can be several doses because somebody's got, and I quote from a pharmacist, a paramedic that I worked with, they got too much on board. And they've got too much in their system, so it can take a few doses to bring them back to us.
Right. Well, and so with naloxone and Narcan, those are made for opioids, which would be heroin, right? And so mostly what we're seeing in the streets now is synthetic opioids, which is why it's going to take more doses because they are effective. Narcan and naloxone are effective on synthetic opioids, but not greatly effective. And so oftentimes you have to use like 6 to 10 doses. Yeah. And there is a new FDA-approved OPVEE for synthetic opioid reversal, but I don't have the information on that because it is so new. It's probably only been around for about 6 or 8 months.
Yeah. It's a newbie. It's a newbie on the shelf. But so I
incredibly important, though.
Yeah, I think what you said there is, I think, important for a lot of the listeners who might. There's those who have used these chemicals out there and these substances, but there's heroin, which is a natural product, and then there's fentanyl and some carfentanil and some things which are synthetic. And so they've been developed by chemical reactions to have the effect of the opioid, which is, we can talk about heroin and opium. We can go back into the dark ages of time.
Can I tell you a statistic?
Yes,
statistic.
A statistic?
Can I give you the word?
Yes, statistic, please. Thank you, Erin.
Oh, gosh, sorry, words today. So last year, there was a 49% decrease in heroin overdoses, which is incredibly scary, because that means that it's all synthetic opioids now. And that's what people really wanted and have been wanting and craving. So now that's what we're getting, and it's mixed with everything. And so it's incredibly dangerous.
Right.
It's being mixed in all sorts of things, our cocaine and methamphetamines and marijuana.
Yeah.
So really you should be drug checking everything.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we do talk about. I mean, it's desirable to have fentanyl. Many people are desiring the synthetic opiate, which is, if you've heard fentanyl, you probably have, because that's been in the conversation for a long time. But they're, as you said, they're putting that in everything because it's highly addictive, which means that you're going to go back for more. And you're stuck in a cycle. And so that's why we have these medicated assisted recoveries, to help people begin to feel as though they have an option other than just abstinence, because that withdrawal process is so incredibly painful. From what I understand, stories that I've heard, just stopping is like going into convulsions and flu and feeling worse than you've ever felt. And I think I remember Justin saying last week, he says, I wouldn't wish withdrawal on anyone because it's brutal. And so that's why these particular treatments have been evolving, and so that we can help people make a softer path to a recovery, and they can move towards recovery in a way that they don't have to suffer and struggle, because that's not what getting better is about. Getting better is about having tools and having talks and having doctors say, hey, it's okay. What happened to you in your life brought you to a place where you needed to escape. Let me help you in ways that we can now, rather than just say stop using. Because, folks, it don't work. It don't work. It can work for some, but it doesn't necessarily work for all, particularly with the strength of what things that we have out there, specifically with the opioid.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's also medications for those who struggle with alcohol use. And there are some that are really important that we'll talk about. Erin has something she wants to say.
Oh, just before, because we're talking about naloxone really quickly, I just want to encourage you folks that are out there, if you care about humans in any capacity, naloxone is available free for you at any pharmacy. You can pick it up. I encourage you to carry it, or if you live in an area that you might see this sometimes, help save a life. You can do it for free, and it's just, it's so beneficial to carry it on you. And fun fact, naloxone was actually created by accident.
Oh, tell me the story. I can't remember that.
You'll remember when I say it.
Yeah.
It was a gentleman who was trying to find a cure for his son's opioid-induced constipation.
Oh!
And he ended up coming up with a life-saving drug. Unfortunately, his son had died of the overdose before he came up with the life-saving drug of naloxone, but he then donated the discovery to science, and that's why you can get naloxone for free. So get it.
Amazing. I didn't know that whole story.
Yeah, and if you go to Steve Remler Hope Network, you can find all sorts of free trainings to learn how to administer the muscular dose and then the nasal spray as well. But like I said, it's free to carry, and I just think that everybody should know how to use it and have it available.
And be prepared.
In case you need to, yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things, I heard a story from one of our former AmeriCorps members at Minnesota Recovery Connection, and she carried it in her backpack, and she was at an event in downtown Minneapolis, and by chance, this sounds terrible, but she stumbled across somebody who was on the ground, and she didn't know what was going on with the human, but she thought, oh my God, I've got naloxone in my backpack. But she was terrified to do it. But guess what? The people around her weren't.
Good.
They took the dose, they gave it to the individual, and the individual woke up. Then she at the same time called 911 so that there was rescue folks that came in and took care of that human. So even if you just carry it and you are terrified because you don't know, or you just happen to be at the right place at the right time, but usually folks that might be using these substances, there's going to be a couple folks around, and they know how to use it. So we as a community can say, hey, I got this stuff. I almost said a bad word there. I got this stuff. I don't know what to do with it, but can you help this human? And they'll go, oh, yeah, heck yeah, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of folks out there who are using these substances who have brought many of their friends back to life. Mm-hmm. And this is just a reality. But the fact is we have a way to save a life. And maybe that would be the one time when somebody came back and says, man, I'm tired of this lifestyle.
Thanks.
And then we've got Minnesota Recovery Connection. We've got Twin Cities Recovery Project. We've got all these organizations that are here to say, come on, we'll talk to you. No judgment.
Yep.
Don't worry about it.
Yep.
So, let's walk a little bit into
sorry about that.
No, that was amazing. That was an amazing conversation.
Yep.
So what were you going to say?
The naltrexone and Vivitrol.
Yes.
Vivitrol is probably the one that you wanted to get to. That one is also an injection, a 30-day injection,
And
which
this
helps
is for
with
alcohol.
cravings.
Yeah, alcohol,
Correct.
alcohol medicated assisted treatments, medicated assisted recoveries. I'm going to keep saying this, folks, because these are medically assisted. These are not things you can just go buy off the shelf, but they are medications that people can take that essentially either make you really sick if you use alcohol, or they just relieve the pressure of the desire to drink. And what's interesting about some of these medications is that they were used for other issues, like not related to substance use disorder, and this was the side effect. And I think that's so interesting because a lot of medications have interesting side effects. Personally, going way off topic here, I am on a medication to help the pre-diabetes that I have, which also suppresses my appetite. So they found that it is an appetite suppressant to lose weight. That wasn't what it was intended for, but this is what it's turned out to be. And we've all heard about some of the medications out there that do that. But it's true.
And they're also finding then that folks that have found the cravings for substance in that same scenario with that drug is lessened as well.
Yeah, I mean, so we're on the cusp of finding out we've got pharmaceutical companies that are really amazing, and then we have the bad guys, which we all know about them, the opioid organizations. But what we do know is that there is an opportunity for a lot of these medications to help folks. And we're just continuing the conversations about how do you help the person who's struggling around you. And so there's also smoking medications. A lot of us have heard about, there's the gums, there's the patches, there's oral medications. And one of the things I learned a few years ago when I was working with someone while I was doing the trainings, a medical professional that came in, and that is sometimes, particularly with smoking, you use a couple of them. You layer them on top of one another, and it can help the individuals just lessen that craving. Because one of the statistics is that if somebody can stop their original chemical, many times picking up another chemical happens. Smoking is one of those. That if you can stop smoking as well, and you've relieved yourself of either alcohol or some of the other substances, and you pick up smoking because we have addictive minds, let's just go with it. We want something that just makes us feel better. But once you let that go, statistically, once you let that smoking go, the whole addictive mind games begins to become relieved. And then we are ultimately so much healthier. And then there's another statistic that ain't so great, which is many treatment places, there's a higher smoking, 30% of the people that work in all the treatment worlds, their staff smoke. And so it is one of those things where, really, can we just pull the cigarettes out? Let's have the space where even the people who are doing the treatment for the people who are struggling with their substance use, let's get the cigarettes out of there.
It is really difficult. That's a pretty low number when you consider that I think it's 82% of opioid users are also smokers, and 76% of just folks in general with substance use disorder are smokers. So 33% ain't that bad.
I know. It's just kind
it's still because what's the national average, or Minnesota's?
So Minnesota, only 13% of the population smoke.
Yeah.
So when you think that it's 13% Minnesotans smoke and 30% in those environments smoke, that's where the statistic kind of comes together. But we're here to entertain and educate is what we're doing. And we just want to open up the minds and the support around people who are struggling with substance use disorder, that if you are struggling, there are many ways that you can find recovery. And if you are at all curious, call Minnesota Recovery Connection or another recovery community organization. Talk to a human that might have been on this journey, and we can help you. So we're going to take a quick break. Thank you for listening to Redefining Recovery, a Recovery Revolution. We'll be back momentarily.
Welcome back. Gets me in the mood for the walk for recovery every time I hear these guys.
Oh, totally. I'm there. Let's roll.
It's going to be a good time. Welcome back to Redefining Recovery, a Recovery Revolution. I'm Erin Fitzgerald, hanging out with Caddy, Frink, and we are talking about medicated assisted recovery.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Erin, what I do know about you is on your journey to recovery, you actually used a couple of these medications to relieve your substance use disorder with alcohol. Just give us a little snapshot of what that looked like.
Yeah, so I didn't actually know that these existed. I took both naltrexone to cut my cravings and antabuse. I think it's also called disulfiram, or I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but... what the antabuse or disulfiram do is it actually makes you really sick if you drink when you're on these medications.
Right.
And also, if folks don't know, medications linger in your system for a while, just like drugs and alcohol and substance lingers in your system. So these were really helpful for me. I think that the naltrexone helped with my cravings. I was also not in a good headspace in my time, in that time when I was trying to find recovery. I really needed other things like, the mental health therapy to help me with that. But I can tell you from experience that if you do continue to use your substances or drink on these medications, you will in fact become really, really, really ill.
Yeah.
Like really sick, worse than a hangover. Really awful. So my guess is that most people wouldn't go ahead and do what I did and test the waters, and they would actually just use it for what its purpose is.
Oh, I've heard plenty of stories with people test the waters on these.
I know I'm not the only one, but it's still embarrassing that I had these opportunities and I kind of passed them. I skipped on them. So.
Well, and I think what you said originally is really important. That is, you didn't know they existed. And that is why we have these conversations. Because if you know somebody's struggling, whether you remember the names of these things, it's like, did you know there's something that you can take that will help you not want to drink now? It doesn't feel good if you try to drink on it. So, it's kind of like a bitter pill, so to speak. But the fact is that it can help people, and whether you're just going to be a straight arrow and you're going to take the medication and not drink, or you're going to test the waters, but you're going to learn right away that it ain't worth it.
Yeah.
But I think another thing you said, Erin, is really important, is that you needed other help as well. You needed some mental health help, probably maybe needed some physical help with other things that were going on, because I know you've got some back issues that got neglected for years because either the medical system didn't listen to you or you didn't know how to communicate. But you have to get in recovery sometimes to be able to deal with some of these issues that are out there.
Yes.
And that we're dealing with.
And it took me 4 years even in my recovery to get my back issues covered up, or taken care of, and not resolved, but answers to. And that's why it's important that we allow people to keep on these medications, because man, there's still struggles. And I've been working on these back issues for a dozen years easily.
Yeah.
And I just now am finally getting it figured out. That's really stressful for me. And honestly, was part of my substance use.
Sure.
And could have brought me back at any given moment. Yeah. So if folks are needing these medications to help sustain recovery, amen. Give it to them.
Yeah.
Throw it at them.
Yeah. Give them
Please
the opportunity.
Support it.
Yeah. I mean, Because, if anybody's trying to give up food addictions, I still struggle with it. I totally still struggle with it. And it takes time to change your brain. I was watching some silly videos last night, but it was about some women who had lost some weight. And even though you've lost the weight, your mind is still in that fuller body because you lived in that body for a long time.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you change it in a relatively short period of time, even if it's a year or two. But if you lived in a bigger body for 20, 30, 40 years, you have this mental adjustment.
Yes.
So same thing goes with chemicals. If you've been drinking like I did, I drank until I was 39 years old. And not drinking wasn't easy. What stopped me was I had the law on my shoulder. And they were saying, if you drink and you get busted, you go into jail or worse. And I'm like, that was a big enough threat for me, but it wasn't easy because I had to change my brain. I needed to find a way to escape the pain without my substance. And so to Erin's point, to my point, I used mental health services. I used friends. I actually opened up and told people where my pain was. Boy, did that take a while.
I just revealed yesterday to my sponsor, aka best friend, that there's so many things that I was so unafraid of revealing and that are like I'm still just like coming to terms with now, years later. Like I either didn't want to say it out loud or didn't recognize it for what it really was.
Yeah. So remember, when people use substances, it's not because, wow, I want to go out and get drunk and, oh, wow, I want to use opiates or I want to use cocaine or I want to use all these things because it's just fun. Many times it's because there's something else. Now, there's experimental folks. People go out, they're young and they're youthful, and they go to a party and they pop a pill or here or there, or they do something. But those pills now can be laced with things that could kill them. And there are enough stories out there where when we talk about all of these medications to help with substances, there's now fentanyl strips that is distributed in many different ways. There's actually another strip out there called xylazine. Xylazine is something else that is getting mixed in the substances that people can inject in, or they can consume in pills, or they can actually even smoke if it's, marijuana. And so we really want to inform people that there are chemicals on top of the chemicals or involved, mixed in. And what we want to do is we want to just help people understand. And that'll maybe be the next conversation that we have. I think we just came up with our next conversation is some of these other substances out there that are infiltrating the chemicals on the streets and how they can be a death sentence.
Yeah, and how they're just creeping in to our neighborhoods and we don't know about it. But there's cool little organizations throughout the city that have these conversations. They used to be called the Drug Users Union. Did I get that out right?
I think so, yeah.
The Drug Users Union. And it was a group of people that would talk about what's going on with the substances in the neighborhoods and in the states and in the country and what they need to watch out for and what the symptoms are of a new thing and what they're calling it. And so there's organizations now or, groups that do that now in the metro area. So it's really great because there are always new things popping up and it's incredibly scary. Drugs used to be scary 30, 40 years ago. They're way scarier now.
Way scarier. I mean, I hate to say this, but it's like I wish it was just cocaine and heroin.
Right.
I really wish it was the old days when I was not using substances like that on occasion. I dabbled, but that wasn't my jam. Give me some booze and I'm a happy girl back in the day. But that was simple then. Now, there's complexities with that in terms of the HIV and AIDS epidemic because there was other things that were going on. And again, all of these things revolve around people wanting to potentially escape from the sadness, the trauma, the events that took place in their life. Erin alluded to ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences. We talked a little bit about that. So remember, when people are using substances, it's not necessarily because they think it's fun. It might be because there's something below that. So we've had a really great conversation today. I hope some of you have gotten some good information about how you can help your fellow human, or if you can understand what your fellow human might be going through. I want to encourage you to join us in supporting our mission at Minnesota Recovery Connection. Become an annual donor, a monthly donor. You can be a volunteer at our organization. Your engagement helps us sustain the efforts that we have at Minnesota Recovery Connection. You can reach us at minnesotarecoveryconnection.org and donate, volunteer, be part of our family. Thank you, Erin.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.